Did you hear in 2022, we had like 300% increase in foreclosures nationwide? Can I tell you why that's not that big of a deal? Sometimes life just sucks, and sometimes it freaking rocks. We will discuss all the things from family and real estate to travel and just life in general. So take a seat, or don't, you do you, and welcome to the Lambadass Podcast. So check it out. This episode, I am filming alone. I'm not really alone. I mean, Billy is here, obviously, doing all his stuff. But I wanted to film this episode specifically by myself because, one, it's going to be a little bit shorter than the last couple episodes. And two, as a real estate agent, I do feel like it's my duty to bring you knowledge of what is going on in the market. And whether you're listening to this in Southern California, where I'm currently filming, or you're in Alaska or Maine or Florida or wherever it is that you are, I feel like the real estate market is valuable information to everybody, especially when the news tries to scare the piss out of us. So with that said, welcome to the Lambadass Podcast. If this is the first episode that you are tuning into, I am so grateful for you. I'm so glad you are here. Normally when I have somebody here with me, it gives me an opportunity to sit back, think about what they're saying, digest it. I'm literally having a conversation with myself to you. So if I take a break to grab a sip of water or something, it's totally norm. So this last week I was at a real estate conference. So I am coached through Tom Ferry's organization. If you are not familiar with Tom Ferry, he is a real estate coach. He coaches agents to be like at the top of their game, very much like how Kobe Bryant would have a coach, very much how Brett Favre has a coach. Like real estate agents tend to have coaches as well. We always want to be on our A game when it comes to working with the consumer. So this week, I'll start with a funny story, actually. So flights, if you have not been flying lately, flights are horrendous. It is so difficult to go anywhere on time if you are flying somewhere. It's seriously an anomaly if that actually happens. So initially what had happened was our flight originally was delayed just a little bit. It was only like an hour or so. We were supposed to get in. Let me take this back. So this was during Hurricane Hillary, right? So Hurricane Hillary was not really a hurricane. It was a lot of rain all at once. But the news was, and this kind of goes back to my whole news thing, the news was telling us that it was going to be this crazy downpour, and it was for some people, like out in the desert areas of Southern California, like in Palm Desert, Palm Springs. We did have floods. However, a lot of those floods, not all, but a lot of them were in flood basins. Like the basin was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Anyhow, I get notification on Saturday that my flight has been completely canceled on Monday, which, by the way, my flight was not taking off until like 6:30. I got the notification Saturday afternoon. So I thought that was just a hoopla, in and of itself. Anyways, gets rescheduled for Monday. Monday, I find out my flight is delayed by like an hour or two. I get to Vegas. My flight from Vegas is delayed. Y'all, I did not get to my bed until about 1 p.m. on Tuesday, and the conference started on Tuesday. Initially, I was supposed to be there by honestly, it was like 12 hours earlier. So it was just a shit show, to say the least. Anyways, go through my conference, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then on the way home, this was the flight from hell, at least for me. I don't do very well flying. I fly all the time, but I don't like to fly by myself. So if I don't have Sweetie Pie with me or my kids with me, I can get really anxious. I try to just let it go and I do the best that I can. However, as we're flying, I'm noticing that we're in the air a lot longer. What had happened was the captain comes on and he says, very muffled, we'll be on the ground in 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So I start packing up my stuff. 25 minutes later, we're not on the ground. And I'm like, what is happening? So you can tell that it's just taking a lot longer. All of a sudden, clear as day, no muffles whatsoever, the captain gets on the intercom and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, we are making an emergency landing at LAX. Mind you, I was supposed to be landing in Orange County at John Wayne Airport. So we're making an emergency landing at LAX and our flaps will not go down. So we're having a hard time slowing the plane down. So we have to make an emergency landing there. We need a longer runway. One of the girls in my office who I manage is even a worse flyer than I. And she sits up, she's a couple of rows in front of me, and she turns and she looks at me. And I'm thinking, okay, if I lose my shit like right now, she is going to freak out. So I looked at her and I go, you're going to be fine. If you're not watching me on YouTube, I'm literally like putting my hand up like, you're going to be fine. They prepare for this. They train for this. What's probably going to happen is they're going to land us. Mind you, everybody else on the plane, at least within a couple of rows distance of me, can hear me. And I'm talking out loud to reassure myself. And this poor girl, I don't know if she's going to want me to use her name. Her name's Angela. If she doesn't want me to use her name, sorry, Ange. Anyways, so I'm like, it's okay. We're going to be fine. They train for this. What's probably going to happen is they're going to land us at the Tom Bradley terminal because they land big airplanes there. They just need more time to stop or whatever. My explanation of what's going to happen, mind you, I just sell real estate for a living, so I have no idea really what the hell I'm talking about. Anyways, she turns around because my explanation was perfect for her. She turns around and sits back down. And then my team ops manager, Nicole, who's on my podcast often, turns around and she's like, how am I going to get my car? Like, she went straight to the logistics of getting her car. And I'm like, how are you going to get your car? How are we going to land this plane? We're going like 8 million miles per hour. And needless to say, it was scary. So we start coming in for our landing. And you guys, we were hauling ass. I mean, we were going so fast, and I could see these buildings and the runway. And I mean, it was so freaking fast. And what they ended up doing is they took right back off. And naturally, that scared the piss out of me. They're going over, if you're not familiar where LAX is, aside from it being in LA, it's not too far from the beach. So what they do is generally they'll take off and they'll circle around the ocean and get to wherever it is they need to go. So he's circling around the ocean. He's either dumping fuel, obviously, or trying to burn it up, one of the two. So he circles back around, and in my mind, you guys, all I could think of was, okay, they're worried that we're going to have like this crash landing. So they want us to land on the ocean because then like we do less harm to the people on the ground. You guys, my mind was a million miles away as I just got done explaining to everybody in the rows surrounding me how we're going to be fine. In my mind, we were not going to be fine. And I'm usually pretty level-headed when it comes to these things, but I was losing my mind. So I'm texting Sweetie Pie and I'm texting my kids. Sweetie Pie was just letting him know this is what's going on, and I am scared out of my mind. I've never been so scared. I don't think ever. So I would have to really think about that, but it was seriously one of the scariest times ever. And he's just reassuring me. I text my mom and let her know what's going on. But my kids, I was like, listen, I hope you guys had a great game today. I'm super proud of you. I missed you while I was gone. I love you, and I can't wait to see you. I didn't want anybody getting wigged out, but I certainly wanted Sweetie Pie and my mom to, have a moment. So anyways, we circle around, we come back in, and this time we're certainly hauling ass, but not as much ass as we were the first go around. And the pilot had started really shaking the plane. He was like kind of rocking it back and forth. Again, in my logical mind, that was to take some speed out of it. I don't know if that's really what it was for. And we landed going so stinking fast, and you could tell they pulled on the brakes really hard. There was emergency personnel that met us there. And now I'm in LA when my car is in Orange County. So it was just a whirlwind of traveling. When I was in Texas, we had the craziest Uber drivers. If you follow my Instagram stories, you guys, these Uber drivers are something else. I had some guy pick us up in his underwear, like straight up in his chonies. Yeah, Billy, I'm not even joking. So my camera guy is looking at me like, are you joking me? He was in his chonies and he was eating chips and salsa from a chip bag and like a salsa can. Like, it was just the weirdest thing ever. Thank God I was not by myself. And there was a gentleman in the car with me. I tend to feel a little more safe that way. Anyways, it was a shit show to say the least. However, I told you that long old story to let you know what's going on in the real estate market. I find it very funny that a lot of people don't put these things together. But then when I step back, it's really not all that funny at all. As I mentioned earlier, the news's job is to scare us. And they don't do it, in my very naive mind, to really scare us. I feel like they do it to have ratings, right? When you want to know what's going on, when you hear something that's happening, you want to tune in longer. And if those things are bad or scary, unfortunately, it sells. Fear, sex, all of the above, it sells. So the news companies are a business just like everybody else. They are trying to make payroll. They are trying to pay for the lights on in their building. And I think that any way they can scare us into something, you very rarely will find positive things come out of watching the news. Every once in a while you get the feel-good story, but very far and few between. So I'm coming to you with a feel-good story. And the feel-good story is the market is not crashing. It is not crashing. I know that people have been saying that for years. Let me give you an example. In 2016, my husband and I, we bought the home that we currently live in. And it was funny because I was really just going to re-sign our lease. We had really no reason to move. We had savings and everything was great. But in my mind, we needed to wait for the market to drop a little bit. And it was an election year. And so I knew that we were going to be getting a new president, good, bad, or indifferent. It didn't really matter. I just know election years tend to be a little more finicky than other years, having been in this business for quite some time. So a house popped up on the market down the street from my parents. And needless to say, David was like, well, what do you always tell your clients? If you can afford to buy, you should buy. We can afford to buy. We should buy this property. So needless to say, we have doubled our equity, right? What I bought it for versus what I can sell it for now has doubled. Have I put money into it? Yes, of course. But at the end of the day, I'm going to net so much more than if I would have continued to rent. And I also know that the property that I was renting did get a new tenant, and they are getting, I think we were paying like $2,900 for a house in Chino Hills, which is amazing in Southern California. But again, this was many moons ago. I want to say the same house could probably rent for like $4,500 now. So as the housing market went up, so did the rental market. Had we stayed there, I really would have put us in a really bad financial predicament. So I'm grateful that we didn't. The market is not crashing. The news is going to sell it to you like it is. For example, there was a statistic that came out that said in 2022, foreclosures were up 327% or whatever. I'm not being exact with my numbers, but the foreclosures are up. Foreclosures are up. Okay, let's put this into perspective. Yeah, of course foreclosures are up. You guys, we had COVID in 2020. They could not foreclose on anybody legally in 2020 and 2021. The federal government actually put in an act that said that we could not, and some states even had longer terms than what the federal government put in. So in some states, you could even go longer without making your mortgage payment, without risking foreclosure on your property. So in 2022, when foreclosures were able to start happening, yeah, naturally you're going to see a massive increase in them because there were none in the years before. So I really encourage you guys to take a look at all things considered, right? We're just painting a broad brush stroke. The news is doing that for us, when in actuality, there's a bigger picture to be told here. So take everything with a grain of salt when you're listening to the news. It's not going to happen. Right now, do you realize that the majority of homeowners across the United States have equity in their home? What happened was these people got into these great loans in 2015, 2016, 2017, and so on, and they had maybe higher interest rates, 6%, 7%. What they did was they refinanced. Maybe didn't pull any money out. They just refinanced to a lower interest rate. So now they're at 2%, 3% interest rates. And so what they want to do is they want to hold on to their properties. They don't want to give up this interest rate to go buy something that's bigger and better with an 8% interest rate, even though they have all this equity. So yes, we're seeing a pullback from sellers in wanting to list their homes because of these great interest rates. So there's not as much supply on the market, but you guys, it's simple supply and demand. Those people who were looking for homes in 2020, 2021, and 2022, but the market kept beating them out, or they just got exhausted of putting offer over offer in, those people still need homes to buy. Those people probably still have savings sitting around, and they're just waiting for the perfect opportune time to buy. The time, in my opinion, is now. Now, with that said, I have gotten in not some arguments, but some heated debates with people who are not in real estate. Sweetie pie. He will come to me and he's like, I don't think now's a good time to buy. Well, that's cute. My thought on that is still, if you can afford to buy now. If you can afford to get into a property, get into that property. And everybody says, well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop. Well, you and a million other people. What do you think is going to happen when interest rates drop? interest rates are going to drop and home prices are going to skyrocket. So even if there is more inventory on the market, those homes are going to come at a premium. And we're not even really seeing that much of a drawback, if any, from homes that were listed. Let's say they wanted to list in 2021. And they were kind of waiting, and now they're putting their properties on the market. We're not seeing a massive price difference from 2021, 2022 to 2023. How I explained it to another client is, let's say in 2021, when the market was like booming and at its best, I could sell my property for $800,000. What happens is when your neighbor sells for $800,000, well, you want $820,000. And then when somebody sells for $820,000, well, you want $850,000. So now I'm at the $850,000 price point where people are at, and I'm having to tell them, no, it's closer to the $800,000. Well, they think, well, I lost $50,000 in equity. Well, no, not really. It was just, that's where the market is. That's just where it has been. So yes, we're not seeing, we're not seeing home prices jump by the millions by any means, but we're definitely not seeing it decreasing either. So from what I'm seeing in the market is the people who are selling are people who need to sell, right? Even though people have low interest rates, people get divorced, people die, unfortunately. People are born. People need bigger homes. They have babies, and the babies turn 5 and they start going to school, and they realize, oh shoot, when I bought this house as a bachelor or a bachelorette, I wasn't thinking about school districts, and now I live in a real shitty area, or not even a great area, but the schools are rated really low. I want something a little bit better. You guys, there will always be factors that will force people into buying and or selling. In this point, selling just because we're seeing such a low amount of inventory. So keep that in mind. The other thing that I kind of want to leave you with, if you will, is here's the deal. If you can afford to purchase a home with an 8% interest rate, purchase the home. Well, what happens if interest rates drop in a year? You can refinance. At the end of the day, if you finance into a fixed term loan where your interest rate's at 8%, your interest rate is not going to fluctuate at all unless you refinance or you pull out a HELOC. So a HELOC, by the way, is a home equity line of credit. I can get into that more later. That's very specific to consumers' needs, so I won't touch that just yet. But when it comes down to it, if you can afford a payment at 8% interest, when interest rates fall, you can do one of two things. You can either sell because your equity is going to go up massively, and then you're going to have to buy at that interest rate amongst all those other people as well. Or what I encourage my consumers to do is refinance at the lower interest rate, but for a 15-year loan. Think about it. If you got in and you can afford the mortgage at an 8% interest over the course of 30 years, and then you refinance that into 2, 3, even 4%, but you cut your loan back, you've now cut the amount of time that you will be paying on that property, the amount of interest that you will pay on that property in half, depending on when you refinance, of course. So that is my recommendation. And worst case scenario, you refinance at the 2, 3, 4% interest rate for 30 years. Now you've got an even better opportunity to pay down your mortgage and save some money so that you can invest in an income property to grow your portfolio. I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into what was bestowed upon me. I feel like it's nothing that I didn't already know, but I think that when you watch the news and you read the news, it's very hard to decipher what's really happening versus what you're being told is happening. I also do think that markets are very fluid, right? So it's very specific to where you're at. So make sure you find an agent within your area. If you don't have one, by the way, if you're listening to this in Idaho and you're like, well, I see all these people all over the place. I see billboards. I see people on social media, and you don't know who's really great and who's going to treat you the way you want to be treated, and treat you like they would want to be treated as an agent, please feel free to reach out to me. I will make sure my phone number is 909-248-5304. That is my personal cell phone number. You can call me, you can text me. I would be more than happy to put you in an agent that is very hyper local to your current market so they can advise you. And if their advice is different than mine, that's great. Again, I can only tell you what I'm seeing in the market that I specialize in, but generally seeing this is what we're seeing in a lot of communities over the United States. So I hope this was of some value to you. If you are not in the real estate market, meaning you do not buy or sell real estate, or maybe you're young or you're a teen and listening to this, or you have been a renter your entire life and you just don't know where to get started, the first thing you can do is listen to podcasts like this. Listen to people who have been through the punches and know what they're talking about and heed advice from them. You always want to be talking to people who are better at things than you are so that you too can become better at those things as well. So I highly recommend, hey, what would you do in this situation? And listen. If you're going to sit here and call me and ask me what I would do and then tell me all the reasons why you're not going to do it, well, okay, you're wasting your time and mine. But if this is something that you're really interested in, I would encourage you to reach out. Happy to help anytime I can. And at the end of the day, I just love helping people because I don't know why. I'm a dork. It gets me at the end of the day what I want to. So by helping others, it works out in, the best interest of all of us. So anyways, I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next time.